Africa, 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 welcome back. I am so excited, Africa. Yes, it's Tuesday once again. Guess what, Africa? You know, in the past we spoke to our sister, Ausposha Dau Sikati. Yeah? Yes, we spoke to her a number of times. And last week we spoke to who? Mr. Mashilo Picheng. Yeah? Yes. Guess what? Guess who we have today, Africa? We have their mentor. Yes, Mr. Henry Chitsulo himself in studio. Mr. Henry. I'm so excited. Welcome to Africa.
Gavin, thank you so much for the opportunity for me to come here and talk about what we all enjoy.
Property.
And
guess what? You're my mentor. For the last, it's 4 months now since I've known you. And the very, very first day, I took a photo with you, and I asked you, I said, say, we're running a program called Property Show at Africa Business. Will you please come? And you said, Gavin, I'm busy now, but when I'm free, I'll come. And guess what? The day has happened. You've honored your words, and I really appreciate it.
Here I am, Gavin.
Africa. But we still have our friend, you know, the doctor, the Hausa, Dr. Hausa.
Good evening, Gavin. Good evening to all of our guests. Always good to be here.
And how do you feel now we have the mentor in the house?
What should we say? Humbled, a little bit scared. No, no, we're good. I'm very keen to hear what Henry has to say.
Yes.
Very knowledgeable man. We can all learn from him.
And guess what? I mean, last week we were saying, wow, Mashilo is so knowledgeable. Now, if we have his mentor, that means, man, I'm telling you.
Yes. So the question obviously is then begging, we need to find Henry's mentor and that person's mentor and the mentor's mentor, and then we're good. Then we've got everyone, the whole list.
Would you say, I know you are on air, but will you say Professor Francios Viruly is your mentor?
No, very much so. I mean, Franz and I have been working together. I mean, I've known Francois when he was still at J.H. Isaacs, and I was working for Standard Bank. I've known him for the past 15 years. And we've been involved on the academic side when he was at Vets. He used to invite me as a lecturer for his master's students. And then he moved to UCT, to University of Cape Town, and he has always continued to invite me. And we're also involved with a number of initiatives. One of that is SAPOA, the SAPOA Property Development Program that is run by UCT in conjunction with SAPOA. And he's the course convener, and I happen to be the chairman of the judging committee.
So he's your mentor. So at some point, he's your mentee. At some point, he's your mentor. So the two of you changes roles.
We do, Gavin. We do. We've been working together, like what I've said, for the past 15 years. We have been involved on the academic side as well as on the various training initiatives for support.
So then that means, Brendan, you've been answered. So he's going to come with his mentor.
Yes.
I think we said around the 21st of September, somewhere there.
Yes.
But you still have to confirm with him, isn't it? Have you confirmed?
I will grab him.
You'll grab him.
I'll grab him on either the 20th or the 21st.
Doctor, you have to be here.
What I'm hearing as well is Francois must expect a certain person to send a social media friend request. That's you, Gavin.
Yeah.
That's going to be coming. You must accept quickly.
Exactly. So now, then after Mr. Francios Viruly, then we need to know who is his mentor. He also has to bring his mentor here. I see the whole UCT, the whole VET, the whole UNISA, wherever he's been, coming here on studio.
Agreed. And we can all benefit from their collective knowledge, huh?
Africa, it's all about socio-economic development. You know, we started with the doctor, the humblest of them all, the doctor himself. And gradually we are increasing. Yes. Why did you call Mr. Henry Salt and Pepper on his head? What did you say off air?
Oh, geez, Kevin, that was something that was, I'm calling attorney-client privilege on this one.
Africa, we're just warming up. You know what? We're going to give the guru, the mentor himself, we're going to give him as much airtime as possible. The doctor has agreed. He said, you know what? We have someone elderly. You know, in our Setswana, refa bagolo, meaning the elderly, we give them the first position. Even if we were in a bus, someone elderly comes, you have to stand up so that an elderly person can sit. So Mr. Hauser, somehow he knows how we roll as Africans. He said, you know what, Gavin, I'll gladly agree. Let's give the elderly the chance, and then we will take over towards the end. Let's just pay the bills, and when we come back, we roll. Africa, we are ready. Let's profile Mr. Henry Chitsulo. We are with him. Let's enjoy. Let's learn. Mr. Henry, the floor, the stage is all yours. It does not matter where we start, as long as we're going to educate the Africans. How did it start? How did it all start? Why property? Why not? Why didn't you choose soccer? Why didn't you choose to be a doctor?
You know what, Gavin? I don't know whether it was by default.
Yes, sir.
I happened to have joined Old Mutual.
Yes, sir.
Right. And the reason why I joined Old Mutual, they were doing some developments. And
what year was this, by the way?
Oh, that was 1988.
1988.
1988.
Jonathan, are you hearing that? 1988. Huh? Yes, I think that was about the time Jonathan was born, 1980, somewhere there.
So Gavin, I joined Old Mutual Properties.
Yes, sir.
And I think you remember in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. Everything was to do with insurances. It was everywhere where you used to go and see Old Mutual Center,
yes, sir.
Sanlam Center, Metropolitan Center.
That's so true.
Everything was to do with insurance companies. So I happened to join Old Mutual. And by the way,
in fact, you're right. The centers were named after the what do you call them? Insurance companies.
Very much so.
Wow.
And I think if you look at the two leading property owners at that time,
yes, sir,
was basically Old Mutual and Sanlam.
Okay.
They did a lot of the developments, and I joined Old Mutual. And I worked with the great Mr. Sol Gumede.
Wow. Are you also going to bring him on air?
Yes, I'll try to bring him on air. His offices are actually here in Randburg.
Africa, do you hear that? We're bringing all them dollars, all the knowledgeable people. Huh? I'm so excited. Just keep on tuning in. Call your friends, call the Gogos, call them Kulus, call everybody and say, Mr. Henry Chitsulo is on air and he's talking about great people. And himself, he is very quite knowledgeable and he's great. Yes, sir.
So Gavin worked for Old Mutual and then left Old Mutual for Sanlam Properties.
Yes, sir.
Did some developments. That time I was involved in a development in Katlehong.
Katlehong, yes.
Let's say shopping center, which is close to, I think it's the old now Natal Spread Hospital.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that was one of the first retail developments that Sanlam had done in the what we call
the township. Yes.
And
so Katlehong is Cathars, Katlehong, Phosphorus,
yes,
and Natal Spring.
And Natal Spring.
That's correct. Yes.
So that was one of the first their first venture into the township.
Yes.
So I started managing that center for them. Very interesting.
As a property manager, as a center manager as well?
No, mainly as a property manager. Mainly as a property manager. We had a center manager that was, he was responsible for the day-to-day. So what I had was a portfolio,
yes, sir,
of properties.
Okay.
And Let's Say Shopping Center was one of the properties that was under my portfolio.
Beautiful. So, Dr. Henry, because we have a young boy listening in Soweto, a youngster who's 16 years, I'm sure he's saying, Dr. Henry, when you say you were managing and you're not a center manager, how are you managing? Would you drive to the center, oversee the center manager, or would you drive to the center every day?
And I think, Gavin, what's the difference between the bigger picture stuff that Henry was dealing with and the sort of day-to-day that the managing agent does?
Yes. In fact, that's a good question as well, yes.
Gavin, I used to go there about 3 times a week.
Okay.
I used to go there 3 times a week and have meeting with the center manager, also meet the various tenants.
Oh, okay, yes.
So the center manager was on the ground.
Yeah.
He was involved in the day-to-day, and he used to report to me. And in terms of the rental collection, and I was I'll go there and have meetings, and you'll tell me what are the issues, what are the problems, what do we need to do, and meet the tenants, because the objective was to make sure that your most important people is your tenants.
That's correct. Your clients. Without clients, you have no business.
If we look after the tenants, what do? They pay the rentals and will be able to satisfy the shareholders.
They bring the cash flow. That's true.
And I think that translates directly, whether it's commercial rental space or if it's residential housing. That's an attitude that I think should be carried over by landlords throughout.
Yes.
That, tenants are a nice source of income, but they're people and they need to be obviously managed and taken care of as well.
Exactly.
Gavin, and Brendan, whilst talking on that, people tend to neglect, right, the role that your tenants play. And I've seen this, especially with the inner city landlords.
Yes, sir.
A number of landlords that own buildings in town, right, or in the inner city. I mean, a lot of them have become absent landlords. And, there is no rapport between the tenant and the landlord.
Yes.
And they haven't got a managing agent. So what they normally do is they get a caretaker, and the caretaker is responsible for everything. And the tenants have not seen the landlord for the past 6 months.
Yes.
And that, I mean, if you look at a number of properties that eventually been hijacked, it was because the landlords have been absent.
Yes, sir.
Of course.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So Africa, obviously, is quite sad when your property has been hijacked. Obviously, we're not promoting that. What Mr. Henry is saying is, landlords, let's be present. Let our tenant know us. Then we get to know things before they happen, isn't it? Prevention is better than cure.
Very much so.
Yes, sir.
Very much so.
Wow.
Because if you look at a number of the landlords or a number of the property developers,
yes, sir,
by and large, they've actually borrowed money either from a commercial bank,
yes,
or from an institution like a TAF, like a GPF.
Yes.
And it's important that money has got to be paid. The bond has got to be serviced.
That's correct.
So that can only be serviced if the tenants are able to pay.
That's correct.
And if the tenants feel that they're being neglected, the next thing is they will start skipping payments. And then you are not able to service your bond or your debt.
So I think under the circumstances, guys, the age-old adage that seems to find application with a lot of landlords is, if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
But under the circumstances, what that doesn't take into account is maintenance.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be broken to have your attention. You do need constant maintenance.
And this is now knowing the people.
Exactly.
So you're maintaining the relationship.
100%.
You get to know what is happening and what's not happening.
Brendan, you have mentioned a very important point: maintenance. Maintenance is key. Right? You cannot neglect the building. And I still remember, during the old Mutual days and the Sanlam days.
Yes,
right?
sir.
We used to have what is called a sinking fund. So a sinking fund is basically, it's like a reserve. You need to be saving money, right?
Yes.
That after every 5 years you do a major upgrade.
Yes, sir.
It could be lift maintenance, because especially if you look at buildings where you've got 12 stories or 4 stories plus, those buildings you need a lift, and that lift needs maintenance.
That's correct.
And can you imagine, Gavin, you are going to a building, 25 floors, and there's no lift.
Yes. Yes.
Well, every tenant on the top floor is, numbers 1 through 20 in the Comrades Marathon each year. They all live in the same building.
It becomes bad, eh?
It becomes bad. Yes. So it's important, right? When there is some surplus income, that you save that,
yes,
right? And that is called a sinking fund. You start saving those funds for a big revamp,
yes,
right? Or for something that is that is not planned for.
That's correct. That's correct. In fact, as you say in this, I'm not going to mention the surname, but I'll mention the name. Henry, I hope you're listening. We were discussing this on Sunday. You cannot keep on paying extra for your 2-bedroom townhouse, because if something happens, you don't have that sinking fund. Because every month you're taking out 500 rands, and you are hoping, like an oracle, that in the next 3 years the property will appreciate. What if it doesn't? We have the guru here, we have the mentor. I'm your mentor, now you're listening to my mentor. It does not work that way, Baba. You must always be in the positive, isn't it, Mr. Henry?
Very much so, Gavin. You have actually mentioned a very interesting point. And Brandon, remember you said I've got a blank check here. I can just talk.
By all means.
You have mentioned something that, the property has got to appreciate in value.
Yes.
When you look at property investment or real estate, it's a long-term investment.
Yes, sir.
And I need just to go back to what happened in 2008. I think we all recall.
Not all. Some people like Jonathan, 1988.
No, 2008 in the
2008.
Yes.
Oh, in the 90s. Oh, just recently.
Yes.
Not in 1998.
No, 2008 in the United States.
Yes, tell us.
Right. When, everybody was, was getting loans to buy houses, right? And I think, Gavin, I mentioned to you, right, those loans are called the ninja loans.
Yes, sir. Right? I heard that for the first time yesterday.
Ninja loan, that is no income, no job, no asset. Mm-hmm. But what were the banks doing? Giving you 120% funding. Now, they were doing that in the hope that after 3 years, right, the property would have appreciated in value. So they were being very aggressive in terms of lending. After 3 years, what happened? The properties did not appreciate in value.
Yeah.
So when they wanted to restructure the loans, right, the people said, "Look, Mr. Banker, I can't afford your loan.
Yeah.
Come and get your house. There is your house."
Yes.
So the prices of the houses in America plummeted.
Right. Now the bank find themselves having stock.
Now the banks found themselves with these assets, right, which the value had basically halved.
Yes.
And what was also interesting is that everybody was just buying, because a lot of those deals had been structured by your top investment bank, your Merrill Lynch, your JP Morgan, the Lehman Brothers, right? Everybody was buying because these were top investment bankers that were structuring that. And a lot of those people didn't know what they were buying.
Yes.
I mean, they didn't know what they were buying. But because they'd been structured by Lehman Brothers, by JP Morgan, they just bought.
The funnies of the game.
And it was said, and you've often heard, that when an American catches a flu, the whole world sneezes. And that's what happened.
And with that, we're just going to go pay some bills, Africa. When you come back, we're continuing with the guru, our mentor, Mr. Henry